Welcome back, everyone. We are now heading into our final session of the day, a fireside chat exploring how universities can be truly transformative spaces. Can I have your attention, La? We are heading into our final session of the day, a fireside chat exploring how universities can be truly transformative spaces. This conversation will look into how higher education shapes identity, values, and leadership, and how institutions can nurture emotional intelligence, ethical awareness, and a sense of responsibility rooted in compassion and purpose. To guide this important conversation, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Michelle Walsh. Dr. Michelle is the founder and director of the Contemplative Practice Lab, a licensed mental health counselor and research associate at the University of Virginia. Her work bridges Buddhist studies, contemplative science, and applied mental health with a focus on well-being in cross-cultural contexts. Dr. Michelle has conducted research in Bhutan, exploring how contemplative practices and Buddhist ethics shape social harmony and well-being. Joining her, we have our panelists for this fireside chat, Lopen Lungten Jatso, President of the College of Language and Culture Studies, Professor Deborah Gare, Pro-Vice Chancellor of the College of Law, Arts and Social Sciences at Murdoch University, Kenrab Nima, student graduate of Shereptsi College, and Professor Melinda Edwards, Honorary Consul for Bhutan in Brisbane. With that, it is my pleasure to invite the moderator and panelists to the stage. I hand over the floor to you, Dr. Michelle.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay? You can hear me? Okay. Honorable Dashos, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Kuzuzangpula, good afternoon and welcome to our fireside chat on the university as a space for personal transformation and leadership. I'm Michelle Walsh and it's an honor to moderate this conversation. Much of my work focuses on student and young adult well-being in public health and in university spaces, including here at RUB. Today's themes have focused on research innovation for informing policies. And as we've heard about exciting new research over the past 3 days, I believe we have a wonderful opportunity to spend this last session of the conference exploring the implementation of well-being research on the ground. Specifically, how the university is more than a space of academic pursuit. It is a transformative space that shapes identity, values, and leadership. And in these turbulent times of rapid change around the world, it seems even more important to use this discussion to examine how higher education institutions can nurture holistic growth, emotional intelligence, ethical awareness, and civic responsibility among students and faculty. Drawing on global and Bhutanese perspectives, this session will highlight experiences and strategies that enable universities to foster leadership rooted in empathy, integrity, and purpose. Incorporating traditional contemplative wisdom and contemporary science, we'll explore how universities can be intentional about cultivating environments where both personal transformation and ethical leadership flourish. We will learn from current university leaders, as well as a recent student graduate, about what actually creates transformation in students' lives and helps to build resilience to face challenges. So let's dive in. We have a couple of rounds of questions, so please try to keep your answers concise at about 2 minutes. And then we can also take some questions for the audience. Okay. So, Kenrab, you lived university life recently. So from your experience, can you please share what elements contributed to your personal transformation? What genuinely made a difference in your development as a whole person during your time at the university?
Firstly, thank you, Dr. Michelle, for the question. Now, as a recent student graduate, I can personally attest to the claim that universities are indeed a space for personal transformation and leadership. But however, firstly, I believe that it is important to understand that personal transformation itself is not a linear path, as there could be a multitude of branching factors attributing to it. So with that being said, my personal experience as a recent graduate from Sherepsi College, what I believe to be most significant in my own personal growth was the exposure to diverse communities and ideas. Moving beyond from a high school setting where everyone you know lived in the same place, going to a college where there are people from all walks of life, all across Bhutan and outside of Bhutan. It had a rich environment of people consisting of students, lecturers, and staff. And moreover, the college also provided a space where you can interact with these people regularly and reflect on their experience. So since an individual is actually a mixture of the personalities that one meets, I could inculcate the good positive values, the good positive ways of thinking that these role models and peers that I've met during those 3 years, and it has helped me to reflect on who I was and who I wanted to become. And moreover, when it comes to leadership, responsibility and leadership are skills that are highly encouraged by the universities. I was a student leader back in my college, and I can personally say that that responsibility of having to manage people, having to coordinate programs, having to manage reports, to manage finances, all helped me in the long run and taught me about resilience, communication, and what it actually means to be accountable to others. So for me, personal transformation happened not because I saw the university simply as a space for studying, but I saw the university as a space for studying, to practice leadership, and to discover myself, and to learn how to contribute meaningfully to the community. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Kenrab. Yeah, that does deserve some applause. Okay, so now I'd like to turn to Lopen Lungten. With your experience integrating Buddhist philosophy into education, could you please share your perspective as a university leader with insight on how RUB can go beyond academic training to nurture personal growth and leadership?
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to a word of disclaimer. Whatever I will be speaking here would be my personal opinion, not necessarily resonate to the opinion of the Royal University of Bhutan. I think what we need to know is the core purpose of universities is to nurture this inner space in every student for self-discovery and self-exploration. And this requires not only accumulation of academic and intellectual knowledge, but also nurturing that inner space where we have this, where we can nurture our inner balance, well-being, and a sense of responsibility. And for this one, our university education must be grounded in first-person inquiry, treating the mind and the heart as the vital frontiers of exploration. And for that, universities must evolve into transformative spaces where universities can nurture that inner mental laboratory in every student. For example, in a physical science lab, when a molecule of hydrogen interacts with the molecule of oxygen inevitably we know that the outcome, with certainty that we know there is this predictable outcome, which is H2O, similarly, in our inner mental laboratory, when we observe our thoughts, emotions, and intentions, we begin to observe similar predictable patterns. Negativities give rise to stress, anxiety, conflict, and inevitably a sense of unpleasantness from within because of our own negativities, because we are the first victim of our own negativities. While compassion, clarity, and kindness, on the other hand, give rise to peace, harmony, joy, meaningful connections. Therefore, when students are able to observe their inner cause and effect relationships, they are able to understand how their inner mental states shape their character, their inner balance, and the overall mental dispositions. So universities must transcend the conventional academic training and embrace holistic human development as a primary purpose of education, because true transformation happens through an inner work of investigating and refining our thoughts, emotions, and intentions. By cultivating this inner mental reflective laboratory, which is within, students develop mindfulness, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence over and above or alongside their academic knowledge, academic skills. In doing so, university education then becomes truly holistic, versatile, and transformative. And that's, I think, what universities need to do, in my opinion, that we not only focus on academic intellectual content knowledge, but also look at the overall human development, which is inclusive of, all-encompassing physical, mental, intellectual, psychological, and spiritual, even the spiritual dimensions.
Wonderful, thank you. Can I ask one quick follow-up question? How do you envision the mentoring the inner laboratory? Is that through some formal curriculum or something more embedded in the culture of the college?
I think thoughts, emotions, and feelings and our intentions are happening on a moment-to-moment basis, but we hardly are aware. We are aware, but we are not aware of that awareness when, we have these, emotions, feelings, and, intentions going, through us. If the direct antidote in the language of mindfulness, self-awareness, if we are talking about mental purification, purification of the mind, I think the first primary antidote to this is to be aware of your thoughts, emotions during the event. When you are angry, know that you are angry, because in anger, whatever you decide is going to be a wrong decision. Whatever you speak will be wrong. Whatever you think will be wrong. Whatever you relate to the world outside will be through the prism of that negativity. Only when you are able to, know your emotions, thoughts, and feelings and intentions during the event, then you have a handle to manage it, because you are the first victim of your own negativity. I mean, here in the audience, when you are angry, how many of you feel wonderful? So if we know that, it's our own negativity that is making us miserable, like touching a flame. Nobody needs to tell me that my hand is burning. Your hand is, feeling that burning sensation. I know from my first-person experience. And similarly, if you, take it to the inner level and know that your negativities are your misery, then nobody needs to tell you, clean up your mess within. You know yourself.
Thank you, Lopan. Okay, next I'd like to ask Professor Melinda. I know you have extensive cross-cultural experience, and from what you have observed, what elements of university life do you believe contribute most to personal transformation?
Thank you, Michelle, and g'day, everybody. It's wonderful to be back in Bhutan. For me, the concept of transformation is best exemplified by the butterfly. Everybody here would be familiar with the journey of the butterfly. Starts as a grub or a caterpillar, then envelops itself into a cocoon and completely transforms itself into a winged, beautiful instrument that can fly. There's very little resemblance between what emerges from that cocoon and what enters the cocoon. For me, that's a very big ask for a university experience, particularly as we have more economic rationalism going on with how students attend and online classes and those sorts of developments. In my experience, the most transformational opportunities that I've seen in my very long university experience, I'm very old, is the New Colombo Plan exchange program that I had the privilege of creating at my university for law students. And my goal was to bring law students from Australia to Bhutan to work with the law clubs to try to embed the principles of democracy that we had recently introduced in developing the judicial system and the parliament. And the students were tasked with creating a workshop that they could deliver for law club students and teachers across schools in Bhutan. And they were focusing on things like access to justice and rule of law, but they were tasked with making it as much fun and to get emotional engagement with their young audience as they could. And that was a truly transformative experience, not just because of what happened in the classroom with that connection, but because it engaged every one of their senses. The sight of Buddha Point, the smell of Doma, the taste of chili. It was all the sound of the chanting of the monks. And then the experience of physically challenging themselves to climb to Taksong and the inability to breathe at the top. And you know, if you go back to the butterfly metaphor, if you've ever broken open a chrysalis, has anybody here ever broken open a chrysalis? I must confess I did when I was very young. It's not a caterpillar that's sprouting wings. It's a white, gooey mush. That caterpillar hasn't just developed wings to add to who it was, it's completely deconstructed itself and created a new identity. And for me, my experience of the students that have come back from those education tours have demonstrated a lot of those features in the way that they have engaged as global citizens within the university. And the way that we made it meaningful in an academic sense is that we attached assessment to this. And their assessment was a reflective journal that they needed to keep throughout the experience. And then when they returned to Australia, not only did they have to hand that in with deep reflective practice, they needed to do a presentation for their fellow students and their peers to encourage others to go. And each one was charged with finding a replacement for themselves in the next year's program on the assumption we'd get more funding and could continue to do it. So for me, those sorts of programs are the immersive experience that engages emotionally and with all of the senses to create a unique transformation experience.
That's great, thank you. And I really like how you added the piece of the reflection, because I think that when we encourage reflection on, any sort of experience, that's where the meaning making can happen. And so I like that that's really embedded in your program. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to switch now to Professor Deborah. You have had leadership at an institutional scale, and so I'm wondering if you would be willing to broaden the lens a little bit and share what you see as the university's broader role in cultivating personal growth and leadership for the common good.
Thanks, Michelle, and also thank you to all of you in the room for the opportunity to learn from so many of you this week, which has been a real privilege. To your point, Michelle, about universities as leaders, leading in the transformative journey of students, but also leading, I think, to the Vice-Chancellor's point this morning, leading change in society. I think there's probably two key points to consider. And the first is that it's very difficult to talk about universities as leaders or change agents at the moment without acknowledging the extraordinary transitional or experience of change and transition that we're experiencing, but also in particular the extraordinary pressures that are on universities and attacks that are on universities around the world. that naturally informs how we behave and what we're charged to do as social leaders. Just almost last month, it was late October, a New York University organisation, a non-profit organisation called Scholars at Risk, published a report called Free to Think 2025. And in that report, the researchers identified nearly 400 incidents of attacks on universities or academic freedom in nearly 50 countries in only the last year. Just in the last year, 400 incidents, 50 countries. And we could think about examples of those attempts to limit the academic freedom of universities. I'm sure many examples already come to your own mind, and there are obvious examples in the United States that are in the media a lot at the moment, and they were included in the report. But there were others as well, many others. Another one that was a very powerful example was the restrictions on universities in Hong Kong, for instance, restrictions on their teaching, restrictions on their research, and restrictions on how academic appointments are made. In other words, who's appointed. And I think one of the very interesting things about this research is that of all of these 400 incidents in 50 countries, there was no common political system. These weren't 50 countries who were all subject to autocracy. These 50 countries ranged from political systems that were liberal democracies to autocracies. And what we learn from that is that all of us are at risk of that challenge. All universities in all countries, everyone in the room today is at risk of that kind of conflict. And that means this is a challenge that all of us share. And it also means that as leaders, the role of universities as leaders is more difficult than normal, but it's also more urgent. And the second point that I wanted to make more quickly is that you'll remember on Wednesday morning that Professor Uwe from University of Canberra spoke about the social licence of universities. And what we're observing in Western societies, not just Australia, but across the West, is an increasing loss of trust by communities in their universities. And that makes it harder for us to have a positive impact, to be the change agents, and to be social leaders. But that social licence that Professor Uwe was talking about on Wednesday and that the Vice-Chancellor was talking about this morning is critical for us in being positive change agents and being leaders. For myself, I find inspiration from a 19th century Catholic theologian who I learned about when I worked for a Catholic university for years. Some of you may have heard of Cardinal John Henry Newman. Now, in the 19th century, nearly 150 years ago, he established the first university in Ireland for Irish Catholics. And that mattered because in the 19th century, Ireland was still under occupation or control by the British, and the university being established in Ireland had been restricted access. The Irish Catholics didn't have universal access to. And so the Irish university that Newman established was really important. And he wrote a work called The Idea of a University. And in that, 150 years ago, he was talking about what we've been talking about this week, the social licence, the purpose, the mission of our universities is to have a role for good, to make positive change, to create a generation of graduates, of scholars, of young scholars who would make good impact on society. And 150 years ago, he was saying that was important, and I know that that's what we're all thinking of as being important now as well. The challenge is that we've got a lot of pressure on us as universities to make that change, but we have to be brave, and we have to step into that space.
Thank you, Deborah. Well, yes, and so there's a lot to be done here. So let's switch to the next round and talk about what we can start doing. So for this next set of questions, I'd like to explore the potential for mutual learning and implementation. So what can Bhutanese and Australian universities learn from each other in cultivating transformative educational experiences? Are there particular approaches or practices that you believe could transfer or adapt to other contexts? Anyone in particular want to start?
G'day again. Back onto my theme of, I think, the incredibly important role of the New Colombo Plan, exchanges, Australia Awards, scholarships. The evidence is in this room with the number of researchers and speakers and graduates who have participated in those programs and are now contributing in such a significant way to the uplifting of knowledge and research in Bhutan. And we have a butterfly in the room, Samantha Shepherd. You may have known of Samantha. She's done a poster outside. She came to Bhutan as part of a New Colombo Plan grant and was here for 10 months and completely transformed the way she approaches education, which she is taking back to Australia, and it is now flavoured with gross national happiness and a whole lot of other things she learnt uniquely from you here. And now Australia will benefit from that, universities in Australia will benefit from that, students in Australia will benefit from that, and the education college that she was studying at will benefit from the comparative experience of learning how Samantha has changed what she had been taught into something completely new and different. My other example is me. As an educator, I mean, we're talking about universities influencing each other. As an educator, I first came to Bhutan in 2011 as part of an AusAid project, again, generously funded by DFAT, and it was about building capacity for your new judicial system and parliament when you became a constitutional monarchy. And as a result of that visit, I wanted to do more visits, and I too, like Samantha, fell in love with Bhutan. And as a result of the transformative experience that I had here, I wrote a novel in 2013. It's about a conscientious type A perfectionist control freak lawyer and her journey from a human doing to a human being, which was the inner science that my excellent friend here was speaking about. So there's a lot of evidence in this room of the really important role that those exchange programs have in universities informing each other through the many, many graduates that we produce. So I think that's my 2 minutes.
Thank you. Professor Deborah, would you like to jump in?
Sure. I think in, I guess, unpacking how we can learn from each other, this week itself has been an outstandingly brilliant example of that. I've learnt so much from everybody that's in the room, and it's been really exciting to see not just the depth of knowledge, but the spread, the geographic spread of that knowledge, that it's come from all over the world, and in particular from Bhutan and Australia. I think there's probably two things to consider in answering, you know, what can we, how can we, and I think it's the what can we learn from each other, and the other is the how. And if I start with the what, I mentioned before how challenging the context is that we're working in now around the world. And for me, I think the what we can learn from each other is how to be brave. How to be brave individually and how to be brave collectively, how to have courage. And then how to lead others to be brave and have courage. How as universities we can teach bravely, research bravely and lead bravely in our communities. There's plenty of examples of the what, right? That learning to be brave and I'm sorry, Michelle, I'll go back to the US again. There's so many obvious examples of universities learning to be brave there at the moment. Earlier this year, you might have read this in the news, earlier this year, 150 university and college vice-chancellors co-signed a public letter in which together they stood up to the Trump administration and condemned what they argued was an overreach of control by the administration. That's 150 universities that were able to do that because they did that together. And there are other examples this year of American universities learning to be brave because of the precedent that their friends and other colleges have made. So I think we can learn a lot by the example of our friends, and by that I mean individuals, but also of our other universities. Excuse me. And the other is the how. The how is what we've been doing this week. The how is the dialogue, the cross-cultural, cross-geographical dialogue that we've participated in this week, and that is happening all over the world all the time now. There's plenty of international networks and alliances that I think are really good examples of this. You might have heard of the Magna Charta Universitatum, which is an alliance. It's actually a statement, so it's a declaration of 900 universities in the world who've signed this declaration. 900 universities from 90 different countries. And they've all signed up to this public declaration that affirms the role of universities to bravely stand up for academic freedom and to bravely have a positive impact for a positive change in their societies. Those kinds of networks help us do the learning, help us be brave, help have courage.
Great, thank you. And maybe now we'll start to zoom in a little bit. So Kenrab, would you be willing to share your thoughts on how the university can provide opportunities that we can learn from?
Once again, thank you for the question. So when we talk about how universities can learn from each other to become a better space for personal transformation and leadership, we're not only looking at how universities can simply be an environment where students can just excel academically, but also personally, socially, and ethically. So I believe that there's lots of strengths that each university can learn from one another. So in my own personal experience, I believe that Bhutan's education system is mainly value-based. We focus on community, well-being, and reflection, elements which deeply encourage students to understand themselves, not only themselves, but also to their responsibility in society. So I believe that this value-based system can serve as a model for strengthening belonging and mindfulness among students, especially in learning, and especially given the fact that we live in an era where student well-being is given a priority. Now, at the same time, I also believed on the other end of the spectrum that experiential and practice-based learning, where students take what they've learned and apply it in real-life projects or real-life settings, is also very important. So I believe universities could use their strong industry linkages, their academic pathways, and student-led innovation hubs as powerful examples of how transformation can happen by simply doing. So through projects, internships, research collaborations, research, and interdisciplinary work, I believe that there are areas where universities can learn and adapt to give students more opportunities to apply knowledge and build their own confidence. So ultimately, I believe that the mutual learning, where there is a mixture of value-based education as well as experiential and innovational learning, can foster an environment where transformational learning is not occurring only accidentally, but also it is something that is nurtured, where students can become thoughtful and more capable individuals. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Kanam. Lope and Lungten, can we turn to you to get some ideas for practical ways that you have been involved in implementing practices in CLCS or even in RUB that could be beneficial to the larger community?
Before I answer that one, I think I want to remind the audience here. I think with AI coming in a big way, the future will belong not just to the most academically, brilliant, but to the most grounded, ethical, resilient, and self-aware. Because AI will not live your life. Human beings will have to live 99% of your life as human beings, and then maybe less than 1% as professionals. So therefore, university curricula must speak to the head, heart, and the hand across every discipline, every learning experience. Academic excellence and character building, they are not competing priorities actually. They are, in fact, complementary foundations of a meaningful and transformative education system. So with Bhutan with its profound cultural wisdom tradition of Thadamsi, which was referred a couple of times today and yesterday, which can be loosely translated as sacred commitment, le jude, universal, principles of cause and effect, and its values of harmony and coexistence, offers foundations essential to inner development. These principles ground education in purpose, humanity, and inner transformation. But in a fast evolving world, working in isolation, working in silo is no longer an option. Progress in any field is achieved through collaboration, sharing wisdom, building on ideas and proven models, and exchanging innovations to create richer and far more resilient ways of learning. Likewise, Bhutan can also learn from the global academic hubs, which are largely known for their advanced research methods, cutting-edge research technologies, and innovative pedagogies that drive performance and academic excellence. Guided by these, modern expertise of the global, academic hubs and Bhutan's timeless wisdom tradition, together universities can, transform the education landscape, the leadership role, shape a future where character and knowledge progress together, and where mind, the head, heart, and the hand work in seamless harmony, something that is largely missing today. So that's what I feel that universities should collaborate and learn from each other.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lope. Okay, so I want to take some time to see if we have questions from the audience. Let's see. There we go. Okay. All right. Let's see. So the first one, does individual resilience discourse risk promoting hyper-independence and disconnecting people from community? Anybody want to take that one on? Shall I read it again? Does individual resilience discourse risk promoting hyper-independence and disconnecting people from the community? I've got a couple others after, so don't worry, we'll all have a chance. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Individual resilience is essential for integrity. As our excellent friend talked before about the inner reflects how we behave in the outer. So unless we have individual integrity, and individual integrity is the alignment of our behavior, our actions, with what we say we believe in. And we need to be resilient to be able to be strong and connected with that and aligned as we face all of the other pressures in the world. So I would think that individual resilience is a really important first step. Then for those individuals to develop teams that have team integrity, and for those teams to affect organisations and nations in terms of building integrity. So I don't see it as detracting from the overall goal of a collective wisdom and a collective service, but I do see that individual work as being absolutely essential to success in that broader goal.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go to the next question. This one is two parts, so you might have a couple of opportunities here. With the fast pace of a digital world, what must Bhutanese universities uptake to keep up globally? What initiatives are being implemented by RUB and Australian universities to integrate well-being into leadership practices? So you have a choice.
By integrating mindfulness, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence, I think universities can transform the education landscape, from a mere acquisition of academic and intellectual knowledge to a process of inner personal growth and character development. Knowledge without character and character without emotional maturity can easily become directionless and at times even harmful. Therefore, universities must serve as sanctuaries that elevates consciousness, that nurtures inner balance, and fosters mindful living. I think this will bring people to people connection closer, because at the base is the love and affection, because you know when you have these feelings of relationship, love, affection, care, respect, trust, these are values that make us feel wonderful without any external interventions. Otherwise, we would need tons of dollars to make us happy, or another person doing nice to us that will only make you happy. You cannot think of being happy by your own nature. It's only through this feeling of relationship that you feel, not just biologically. Biological relationship without feelings doesn't mean anything. Because if you do not have that feeling of relatedness, even the relationship of father and son doesn't mean anything. But when you have this feeling of relationship, love and affection, considering the other person just like you, brings you closer. And that's what makes us wonderful. And therefore, what we need to really do is that we need to turn the table around, and instead of waiting for something from outside to make you feel wonderful, let's ensure this sweetness, this sweet emotion within us. Every morning, let's wake up with this intention that may everybody be happy. Whoever I come across today, let me be the center of epicenter to make everybody happy, so that by the turn of the day, I become the cause of happiness of many people, just simply because of my sweetness and just because of my little smile. Thank you.
And that also echoes what we know from research in the contemplative pedagogy, that transformation isn't just about transmitting information, that it's really about the integration that is essential. Okay, so our next question, unless anybody else wants to jump in on that? Yes, please.
Can I address there was part of that question was around keeping up with AI, universities keeping up with AI, and I think that's worth commenting on as well, given the volume of discussion we've had this week around that. Just earlier this afternoon, Dr. Pem talked about the history of the rollout of the internet and IT and so on. And I think the key point of difference between now and the last 20 years is that for the last 20 years, each of those milestones that Dr. Pem outlined, universities were leaders of, or at least we were first responders, first users of. And that's, I think, the profound change this time. Universities aren't leading AI. Governments aren't leading AI. It's the tech corporates who are racing ahead of the rest of us. And universities being slow animals, it's really hard for us to keep up. And I'm not saying that as a statement of defeat, but just acknowledging the challenge in which we're working. For myself, I come from the creative disciplines. So in my team at home at Murdoch, I have the creative writers, the media producers, the filmmakers, the sound producers, the graphic artists, and so on. And they're most concerned about AI because they see the risk of their own creativity being stolen or themselves being replaced. But I think where there's an answer for us and where we can lead in AI is to demonstrate that even in the creative spaces, we can still be masters of the process. We don't have to be enslaved by it. So that's our job now, is to work out how can we lead in that space.
Wonderful, thank you.
Can I add?
Yes.
Can
Quickly,
I add
we
to
do
that?
need to
My
wrap up.
favourite quote about AI at the moment is from a creative who said, "I don't want AI to write music while I do the dishes. I want AI to do the dishes so I can create my music."
Okay, well, it seems we have run out of time, but I would like to see if we can get each panelist to just share one quick takeaway, your main takeaway that you might like to offer as something to inspire how we can strengthen institutional culture as a place of personal growth.
My one sentence, as we have our very, very respected and valuable DFAT friends here, don't ring the bell on New Colombo Plan, Australia scholarships and exchange programs. I think that in the course of this program over the last 3 days, we have so much evidence of the value that they all contribute. We appreciate the generosity of DFAT and all of the programs and the funding that they offer. And let's not ring the bell on that. Let's just keep that going, because we are starting a very, very rewarding journey for both countries. And this partnership can only go up if we continue to follow the advice of your excellent philosophers. So thank you.
Thank you. Conrad, please.
Okay, so lastly, my concluding remarks would be related to the theme of this fireside chat. That is, universities shouldn't just simply serve to be spaces for personal transformation. Rather, universities should intentionally create spaces so that students and everyone involved can learn to grow and learn to develop their own personality. And if I may be granted an additional sentence, I would like to throw a concluding remark to all the students who are currently enrolled in colleges and universities who are either here or watching live. And I would like to ask them to please use their time in their respective institutes properly, learn, grow, to engage yourself in programs, because the values and the lessons that you learn there, it will genuinely help you throughout your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. Yes.
Thanks, Michelle. I have been really humbled this week by hearing and observing such a depth of research and a depth of knowledge and a depth of skill that's been in the room. And so I guess my takeaway would be a very real sense of privilege for having been able to learn from all of you this week, and to encourage you to continue the brave teaching and the brave research and the brave leadership.
Thank you. Lipton Langton, please.
We all blame external conditions for our happiness, or for our misery at least. But let's today from this session, let's go back with this thought. Is really the external conditions that are making us miserable? Because I would like to imagine people don't make us miserable. It's your nasty thought that makes you miserable. Because why do I say this? Somebody certainly appears in front of you with a smiling face, but if you have a nasty thought against him, his mere presence in front of you is good enough to make you feel miserable. Isn't it that true? Somebody's mere presence in front of you, if you have a nasty thought, that makes you miserable. So let's stop blaming the world outside. Let's dive inside and see that I am the first victim of my own negativity. Similarly, I am the first beneficiary of my positive thoughts, emotions, and feelings. And let's focus on positivity. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to thank each of the panelists for their thoughtful perspectives, from Conrad's lived experience to the institutional wisdom of the different college representatives. Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you participants for your interest in this very important topic. Thank you.
Thus, thank you, Dr. Michelle and the panelists, for a very engaging and educative chat on university as a space for personal growth.